What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Clark Outdoors. Today I'm going to talk to y'all about what I do to be successful at catching red snapper here on the Alabama Gulf Coast. I'm going to talk about 3 different types of rigs I use, as well as how I catch bait, and also about uploading public coordinates into your GPSs. So as far as fishing for red snapper, if you checked out my last video, you saw that we were using a knocker rig, and what I have here is just a weight straight through 30-pound mono with a bead, and then it's tied onto a 6/0 hook here. And when using these knocker rigs, all you got to do is get a chunk of bait, whether it's Spanish mackerel, bonita. In my previous video we were using cigar minnows because I didn't catch any bait on the way out, and I also butterflied the cigar minnow, not just hooking a whole cigar minnow on there and letting it down. Butterflying it, I feel like, really gets the juices going out of the cigar minnow, and cuts the tail. You cut the tail off when you do that, so it's not hopefully spiraling around as much when you're letting it down to the bottom. But I really like a knocker rig. It's just easy to use, not much to it, no fluorocarbon involved, which saves you a lot of money. But speaking of fluorocarbon, the second rig I use to catch red snapper would be a Carolina rig, again with a 6/0 hook, and then I got about 8 feet of 60-pound fluorocarbon, then a barrel swivel with a bead and a weight. And this is a smaller weight on this one. If you're anchored up or you have a spot lock trolling motor, the weight doesn't matter as much because you're staying in one spot and you can let it down as fast as slow as you'd like to. But most of the time I'm drift fishing over the reef, so I like a heavy weight to get my bait down where I want it as fast as possible. But the third rig I use for red snapper is just a jig. I really like this. Is an Alien no alibi jig, and it's tied onto some leader. I think that's like a 50-pound leader, and I'll put a chunk of bonita or Spanish or whatever you got on here and let it down to the bottom and just slowly jig it up, and the red snapper and triggerfish and anything else swimming around down there will hit that pretty quick as well. So that's 3 different rigs I use while red snapper fishing. But next we're going to move over here and I'm going to show you what I use to catch bait. As y'all can see, it's a rainy day today. The tropical storm's on its way in and we're already getting some showers. But anyway, so when I'm on the way out snapper fishing, I have 2 7'6" spinning rods, or possibly 2 or 3 of them tied up with different types of jigs I think I might use to catch bait fish. This first one here is a glass minnow jig. It's from Bass Pro. I think it's like 5/8 ounce jig tied onto some 20-pound fluorocarbon leader, and I like that jig a lot. I also have another, I think this is also 5/8 ounce jig with a treble hook on there, again tied to 20-pound fluorocarbon. And so on the way to go snapper fishing, you know, you might want to check the beach or jetties, or some other types of structure, or just over some of the reefs you're passing on the way out. You might see some fish busting the surface. You know, those could be bonita, Spanish mackerel, hardtail, or blue runner. And I think it's really important to get some bait like that when you're going snapper fishing, just for a variety. You know, if you catch bonitas, you can cut those up into chunks to use for bait or chum. I really like using Spanish mackerel cut up for bait. When I say cut up, I fillet them and then cut them into like thick strips. For bait, you can also cut the stomach out of those fish to use for bait. And then I like live lining out hardtail to try to catch kings or cobia or whatever else might be swimming around out there while you're snapper fishing. So I think it's important to have, you know, your different rigs tied on before you go, because it's hard when you're out there fishing, bouncing around, to be trying to tie all these different rigs on. So if you have the you know, the amount of rod and reels you need to tie on some different stuff, by all means go for it before you get out there on the water. So the last thing I want to talk about is Alabama has, I think, the largest artificial reef program in the Gulf, if not anywhere in the United States that I know of. You can go to outdooralabama.com. I'm going to put a link to this in this video, and they have all the coordinates for the public reefs, which there's a ton of coordinates out there, and they update it fairly often. I know I've got the master list for inshore and offshore reefs in my GPS right now, and it's really easy to upload. You just get your SD card, micro SD card, and put it in the computer, and you can save the file type you need right off their website, and upload all the reefs to your GPS, you know. That way when you go out snapper fishing, you have a lot of different choices to choose from. You don't have to fish right on top of somebody else, which seems to be more common than not. When I'm out there snapper fishing, somebody wants to pull up right next to me, but I feel like if you have all these different coordinates in your GPS, you should be able to find different spots that other people aren't currently fishing on. And then another thing I think is fun to do is on the Outdoor Alabama website, you can upload those coordinates into Google Earth on your computer, and that way you can kind of like plan out your trip. You know, different reefs you might want to hit. So you might want to, you know, get an idea of where some pyramids are you want to hit, some tanks, some you know, sunken ships you might want to hit, like super pyramids, steel pyramids, concrete rubble, bridge rubble, railroad cars. There's just so many different types of reefs out there. So before I go fishing, I like to look on there and just kind of get an idea of the area I might want to head to when I'm snapper fishing, and then have some backup spots to go to if someone's already fishing those spots. But I hope y'all can use this information to be more successful this snapper season here in Alabama. And if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'd love to help you guys catch more fish in any way that I can. Stay tuned for the next one.